How are you there? Just after what we were talking about yesterday, I was talking about African development going to come from Europeans and Americans, mostly white people. Just a day after watching the news at the G7, Mario Draghi, the Prime Minister of Italy, the former ECB president, he announced that the G7 is committing 7 billion euros to the establishment of other economic hubs that will challenge the dominance of the Chinese manufacturing hub. We are looking at a potential of Africa being one of the recipients of that 700 billion pounds. And they are not talking of Africa specifically, but of course they will diversify so that the supply chain infrastructure of the globe is not heavily reliant on China, but is more or less diversified across the globe, across the continent. And I do foresee Africa becoming one of those emerging hubs that the G7 is looking at, considering that there is India there, considering that South Africa was invited, and is it Algeria, another African country, and a few other countries, about 5 countries from across the regions, developing countries were invited. So I would assume that the reason why they were invited is because they are going to be part of that receivership. So being in South Africa and President Ramaphosa being there, it's most likely that South Africa will be used as one of the developing avenues for infrastructural development. Well, which is a good development for South Africa. And by the way, South Africa has got the potential to be the center of African growth. Also, again, I'm going to clarify that it is going to be white South Africans. By white South Africans, it doesn't mean that the whole 100% is going to be made up of white people, but it will be by and large white people and other black people who have entered into that thinkology. You understand? Who think along that line. The rest of the black South Africans are still poor. They still think very local. They still think very township. I don't see them getting into Africa. Not now. Not in this generation. Their mind economically, the way that they think about conquering countries and pursuing markets, global markets, is still it's very flimsy to them. They don't understand. Even their politicians, even ANC politicians, when you hear them on TV talking, you can see that they've got no idea, no clue of the power that they hold in Pretoria. They do not even know what to do with it except to give each other tenders. So in Africa, it's going to be white people that are going to, South African white people that are going to go into Africa, and the G7 is going to invest this money. And I've been seeing it coming. So now seeing a commitment from the G7 solidifies that path that they are going to take. But I am really skeptical on the use of South Africa only in Africa. I think the other country is Algeria or Morocco. I just forgot, but that would be an Arab state up there in North Africa. Talking about Southern Africa and Central Africa, what the G7 is going to encounter in the future is that now for them to have an industrial hub in Africa, they'll need to start producing in DRC, in Central African Republic. Why? Because there's cheap labor there, and there is a proximity to the resources. Talking about the resources in Zambia, and Ghana. In fact, across Africa, every single African country is very resource rich. And I see one of the major drawbacks that they are facing is that they want to be climate change compliant. Therefore, they will not be heavily investing in fossil fuel industries. But then again, Africa is rich in hydroelectrical potential. Africa is rich in solar energy potential, so you can drive an industrial growth policy in Africa by using much cleaner energy, and it will be much cheaper in Africa than anywhere in the world because the continent is extremely hot throughout the year. The continent has got water sources for hydroelectricity. We also wind. We're also big on wind. Also big on thermal energy. So there's a lot of those development areas can develop the energy infrastructure of Africa without heavily relying on the dirty renewables. The dirty non-renewables like coal and oil. Even though in your energy mix portfolio you would need oil, coal, and the use of nuclear in Africa to really drive that impetus for African massive development. As I've said that in my prediction that Africa is going to grow because the white people will come to a realization. They will, as I said, that the white people will come into a realization that in order for the globe to be safe, Africa has to be safe. You see, this is how God works. All right. There's another big lesson I have. But let me just give you the snippet of it. The snippet of it is that if you trust in the Lord, in due course you'll be delivered. Even if the enemy thinks they're stronger than you, they can come out against you and work against you in all sorts of ways. Like the Europeans, they've been so busy in destroying Africa, putting diseases after disease, cancers, malaria, HIV, diseases, wars, ethnic cleansing. Paul Kagame was just rebuking the BBC media right now as I was watching. So you see colonization of Africa. After all the while, God shows the Europeans, in order for you to be safe, you need to develop Africa. Therefore, we as Africans don't need to use our own resources to fight the Europeans. No. They themselves, the Europeans, are going to come to Africa to actually liberate it and free it because they begin to realize at the end of doing all sorts of evil in Africa, they get to realize that we need to develop this place. We need now cheap labor in Africa so that they can produce our goods that they will send to Europe since they don't want to work. Okay, they don't want to do the heavy lifting. They want to sit and be saved as kings and queens. But they will discover that China now, the price of doing business in China has become so exorbitant. So they have to look for other places, just like they are doing right now. And I'm telling you and I'm predicting that they are going to come into all of Africa. So the lesson I'm going to do later, maybe I might not do it, I'm not so sure, but the Lord has been speaking to me about this thing, about the liberation of African movements. That the reason why they went to war is because they did not trust in God. Had they trusted in the Lord, liberation was going to come through the working of the Lord, not through going to the bush with a gun to fight white people. It causes a lot of misery and suffering. The Lord was showing me that, you know what, even if African countries did not fight for liberation the way that they did, and they actually waited on the Lord, things were going to turn around. Look at a country like South Africa. South Africa found its independence in 1994, and they are one of the last countries in Africa to find independence, but they are actually one of the most developed countries in Africa. The other countries like Uganda, Ghana, Kenya, those that found their independence many years back, they've become banana republics and war-torn and destroyed. Do you understand? Because the regimes, the black regimes that fought for liberation against white imperialism, actually used even propagandized even the black people to think that black people needed liberation from whiteness. And to a certain extent, not 100%, please get me clear. If there is a certain percent, whether it's 20% or 25%, of which it was in a repudiation of God himself, because it is God who brought the white people to develop Africa. But of course, to people who are so much into race would disagree with that. People who enter by the heart. The fact of the matter is they did bring development to Africa. That is just true. You cannot deny that. But as the development was coming, as the Lord knew, the God who knows what He is doing. Since the lesson is, you must always trust God. He knows what He's doing. Even if you're going through oppressors, your oppressor will reform. Over time, as you trust in the Lord, your oppressor will get tired. The oppression that they do to you is going to become a pain to them without even you putting an effort. You see, in South Africans were the last to become independent, but the apartheid system became an impediment to those that started the apartheid. To understand, they ended up having sanctions, and the whole reasons for apartheid was for the extraction of the gold mining sector in Gauteng province. And so when the gold was depleting and the mining sector in South Africa in the 1980s was turning sour, there wasn't much impetus or appetite from the Americans to carry on supporting apartheid. By the way, the American government supported apartheid for a long time, and they called Nelson Mandela a terrorist for a very long time. So you do understand that over time, Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in jail, but in those 27 years, developments outside were changing in favor for Africans. Not that his 27 years in jail changed anything, but it's just that over time, the enemy is destroyed. The enemy self-destructs. That's why it's evil. Evil will self-destruct in the end. Whether it looks like people who do evil are succeeding, over years, evil itself will manifest as a destroyer of the one who does it. So the big lesson that the Lord was showing me is that do not fight the evil people. Let them perpetuate their evil, because it is actually, or rather, there is a way of fighting evil people. Let me not confuse you. There's a way of fighting evil people. There's a way of not fighting evil people, such that their own evils will become a cancerous cell to themselves. Just like now the G7 recognizes that now they have to invest outside China. Do you know why? In these places that they're going to be investing in, it is the very same countries that the very same G7 have been pushing agendas of ethnic violence, Northern Kivu, and the French are involved. I mean, Central African Republic, South Sudan, Sierra Leone, everywhere. The French are involved in destabilizing those areas so that they can get cheap resources. Mozambique, Europeans involved. So their very own evil of those Europeans themselves, it becomes a cancer to themselves, that they are the ones themselves who will self-address those questions. Even if they will try to persecute people who speak up against their ills, at the end of the day, it is them who are going to come around. Why? Because of the nature of sin. This is what sin does. Sin will expose you. No matter how much you cover it, whether you cover it with money, you cover it with political power, with weapons and prestige, but because it is sin and it is wrong. That is why God allows us to speak out now, so that to save you, Europeans. Otherwise, Europeans will self-destruct if they don't actually do right. And they say, let us shut him. He's speaking too much. Well, shutting me is actually causing your cancerous cells to actually grow bigger, and it will cause your disease to become more explicit and bigger. Therefore, you do not silence the prophets of God. You listen and take heed, for their lies your healing. Okay, this is all I wanted to say this evening. Thank you very much for watching. Catch you on the next one. My name is Ngobani Zondo.